Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the advantages of water features in the garden landscape. Whether it's a bird bath, a small tabletop fountain, or a large water installation, all of them will increase the ambience of your garden space and increase interactions with wildlife. Now we're all drawn to the sight and sound of flowing water, whether it's in a container or a pond. You can see here these two very different landscapes. That water can be introduced in a way that adds value to your home and pleasure to you. A true garden oasis. Here's what we'll discuss in today's presentation. To know all the different types of water features and how to choose one that is right for your garden. Learn about site requirements, installation tips, and adding plants and aquatic life. Also, you will understand that all water features require maintenance and care, and the larger the feature, the more time required for upkeep and maintenance. And also remember, you are going to get this is being recorded, so you will get a video of this recording, so you can view it again and stop and start if you need to. And no need to worry about writing down resources because you will receive them in your email following the presentation. Here are some criteria for the selection of a water feature. Now, ideally, water features will blend into the existing landscape and complement the style of your home. Think about it. Do you want it to be a focal point or just an accent? What kind of sound would you like for your water feature to produce? If you want the sound of splashing water, then a fountain might be your choice. You also need to determine the size that's suitable for your garden. Ideally, water features are protected a little bit from wind and tree debris, have an access to a water source when refilling is required, and a power supply if there's any pump or lighting that's involved. Always check with your local government office to understand any local zoning regulations that may apply to you. And last but certainly not a least consideration is what your budget is for the supplies and installation of a water feature, particularly if you plan to select and install a large pond, waterfall, or stream. Now there are four basic types of water features. Container water features for small patios and decks, fountains that can be self-contained or just a piece of a larger feature, ponds, streams, and waterfalls. Featured here are two examples of container water gardens. The one on the right is deep enough to accommodate goldfish. I love the plants they've selected here. The gardener on the left elected to have two smaller water gardens. They're too shallow for fish, but they do a lovely job of supporting plants. And she has a trio of plants here next to what looks like a swimming pool. Very nice, and she got the desired effect she wanted. Now, if you live in a condominium or an apartment, you can still have a water feature. Tabletop container fountains are available from an assortment of sources, and so are small fountains that will fit on a balcony or a small patio. Just remember that water is heavy. You've lifted a bucket full of water and you know water does have weight. So if you're planning to put any kind of a feature on a deck that is wooden or an elevated balcony, consider the weight of the water feature. You know, you can fashion a water feature out of whiskey barrels, lined with plastic, of course, tubs, and large bowls. You're really only limited by your imagination. Any ceramic pot you find attractive can become a container pond if you block the drain or use a PVC or heavy vinyl pond liner in the pot. Pots often come with no drain at all, so you can select one like that as well. If you plan to use plants or fish in the container, it should be at least 5 gallons to allow for adequate space and some way to aerate the water, which is like bubbling air into the water to make it a healthier environment for fish and plants. A small pump can move stagnant water, introduce oxygen, and prevent algal growth. A pot that is 12 inches deep will accommodate water plants if desired, but it's too shallow really for fish. Metal isn't recommended for plants or fish, as if the container is in the sun for any period of time, it will become too warm. And of course, if you want the water to be circulated, you can use an aquarium pump of some size that will keep the water aerated, full of oxygen, and moving. They come in many sizes depending on the volume of water that you wish to move in your container. Here are two examples of stone basins as water features. They're so different. The one on the right has more of an Asian feel. It has this lovely bamboo pole, which just drips a constant source of water into this bowl. The bowl on the left has a much more modern aesthetic. Just two examples of how you can introduce a water feature into your garden with a basic stone basin. Broad range of choices. Now, if you have a small garden space, you might want to consider adding a bird bath. It's a wonderful addition and it attracts wildlife close to your living space. Basically, there are two types of bird baths. Those that sit on a pedestal, like the one here on the left, and even this one on the right, although it's on a wooden post, or those that are just lay on the ground and mimic a natural puddle. Just remember that water in any kind of a bird bath ideally is changed daily for the health of wildlife. All types of water features should be placed on a level surface. And it's also really helpful if you place them near a shrub or small trees so the birds have places to perch and wait their turn to get a drink or a bird bath. Now, there are a wealth of bird bath designs, and I chose this one in the center particularly. You can see that it's mounted on a wooden deck. I'm unsure from this photograph whether or not it's in full sun, but it's probably too warm as it's made of metal. What you will find if you select a metal bird bath is that it gets too warm and the birds just will not occupy it. It's unfortunate because I think this one's really very, very attractive. I kind of like it. But there are a wealth of bird bath designs and styles, and metal ones are just not suitable. Select the style that complements your garden. And sometimes you can find a bird bath that comes with a little bubbler attachment, kind of like the one shown here in the center. Usually those are controlled with a little aquarium pump. Like I had one that I broke, but there was a bubbler in it. The water column filled here. The aquarium pump pumped water in here and circulated water. Moving water is very attractive to the birds, and it will discourage any kind of insect life from kind of setting up housekeeping in your garden. If you have a bubbler feature on your bird bath, do keep your eye on the weather when it becomes winter. What I usually do is try to leave it as long as I possibly can, but if we're going to have a long period of freezing temperatures, I just drain the water feature, take the pump out, and store it until spring. Now, fountains. Fountains come in so many styles and sizes, and they offer the soothing sound of running water with pretty simple installation. This is the one that I have in one spot in my garden, and it's very self-contained. It does have an aquarium pump, which pumps the water from the collection at the bottom through a hose up to the top reservoir. Birds like moving water, and you can't believe how eagerly they get in there and take a real bath. I do have to watch for debris getting into the pump. Birds can be messy, and so you will have to check your pump occasionally to make sure it doesn't get clogged. Here's another style of a small self-contained fountain. This one is a big bowl that has, again, a reservoir of water in it. An aquarium pump pumps the water up through the center. It runs through this over this flat surface and back down into the bowl. This one does not make a great deal of sound. This one has a hollow cavity in which water falls, so it does make a modest sound. But this one on the far right, as you can see, it's got a column here where water is pumped way up here, and it drops twice. So it does make a very interesting sound. The height and the size of the chamber will influence the sound that's created. Most of them are operated by a small pump, and these can be purchased from anywhere between $500 and $900 depending on the size and the style of the fountain that you select. Now, a wall fountain might be just the answer if you have a small garden and want the sound of water near a seating area. As you can see from these two different installations, they're pretty simple and easy to operate. Again, water's pumped up from a reservoir. This tiled-in water feature, which is lovely and might be a bit more expensive because it does require a tile installation, has a column of water here. Water comes out here. It also will spray up here, and you can put plants on this pedestal. It's very attractive and does not take up much space. Or this one you mount on a wall. There is again reservoir of water here. The pump pumps water through the hose and up through this opening where it drops back into the pool. A simple aquarium pump is probably all that's required, but you need to make sure you get a pump the size for the amount of water that you're moving. These fountains are a bit more expensive, and you would probably need to budget from $1,000 to $2,000 for the fountain, and that doesn't really include the installation. Pondless waterfalls. On the right here is a stunning pondless waterfall surrounded by flowering plants and looking very natural in this environment. Interestingly enough, it cascades down this lovely waterfall and kind of collects here, but then just disappears into the ground to be circulated back to the top. This simple diagram shows you how it works. Water flows across here and down the waterfall into this kind of depressed area with rock. It permeates through here where you find the submersible pump. The water is pumped into the pump, into a pipe which is connected to the pump here, comes right around here, and comes back over the waterfall. Lovely. Makes a great sound. And it's pretty attractive in your landscape. You will love it. But maybe you want more. Maybe you want a waterfall and a pond. That will offer a multisensory experience and shelter and food for wildlife, as well as giving you visual interest. Now, these kinds of structures of ponds can be, can be constructed using a preformed pond liner, shown here on the right. This is made of heavy, heavy plastic, and you can even purchase the waterfall if you wish. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can simply dig out the space, line it with an impervious liner, and edge it with rocks. Both methods recirculate the water using a submersible pump, as I showed you in the diagram on the previous slide. If you add plants and or fish, that will just enhance the appeal of this pond and waterfall combination. Obviously, this kind of a feature requires more space and thoughtful consideration when it comes to the design and the style. Many people opt to light it at night for another added appeal because it's an attractive thing, particularly if you have it far in your yard, or maybe you can view it from the inside of your house. Pond. Maybe you just want a garden pond. Well, a garden pond is created by digging a shaped depression and using a preformed, as I showed on the previous slide, or a liner system that can be filled with water, surrounded by stones, and plants for an attractive focal point. Now, this kind of a pond naturally attracts wildlife. Often it's filled with fish and plants for added interest, and you can use a pump to circulate the water and aerate it, add oxygen. This will allow debris to break down, especially important if you have fish. And moving water will eliminate mosquito problems. I kind of like the way they put this little floating fountain in here, but you could also have a less visible fountain that circulates water and adds oxygen to the space. But maybe you want a wildlife pond. A wildlife pond is very shallow, only 20 to 24 inches in depth, and it's not pumped or filtered in any way. It's a vital biodiverse habitat for amphibians, insects, birds, and mammals that will naturally be attracted to the water source and the native habitat planted around it. Unlike traditional garden ponds, they are built without the introduction of fish, and they use native plants so that it creates a natural, self-sustaining ecosystem. I've attached an article on creating a wildlife pond here for your enjoyment. Now, a stream. You can have a stream that goes to your pond or waterfall and pond. A stream is really a meandering trench lined with an impervious liner and often filled with small stones and water for a more natural look. The point is, it's designed to channel water into a lower area to be recirculated. The pond actually can be a recirculation point if you choose a pond. The one on the left is just a meandering little stream that was marked, there's a liner in it. They filled it with water. It just goes to a low area where a submersible pump, recirculates it via a pipe back up to the top. The one on the right is a much more modern aesthetic, and it doesn't really flow as much as the one on the left. This one has pop-up aeration fountains, pretty important. This actually goes far this way too, and the water is moved via the pumps. Very pretty. Okay, so I've given you all the types. Now, before you begin to build a water feature, I need you to check with your local zoning or planning office about the need for any permits. You're not going to need permits for small features that are self-contained. If you plan a pond 24 inches or deeper, most municipalities require that it will be enclosed by a fence. This is to protect children from falling in and drowning. Check the requirements before you proceed. Make sure you call 811. You want to have all your utilities marked. And you should also make a call to your insurance company to check for any safety requirements if you elect to install a pond of any depth. Be sure to set a budget. As I stated earlier, tabletop fountains and self-contained ceramic, wood, or clay water features can run from a few hundred to several $100s. A simple waterfall that is recirculated into a buried reservoir can be several $1,000s, even if you do elect to install it yourself. And then, as you might imagine, as the water feature becomes larger, the dollar amount will increase. So do your homework. Set aside what you'll need for your project. If you're looking for professional help, there are lots of choices. Again, make sure you interview the contractor or contractors and get an estimate of cost. A large water feature installation, once completed, will be lovely, but it will require maintenance to keep it running smoothly. Before you make your plan, think about the time commitment that it will entail before you proceed. Now let's discuss site selection. You need to select a spot, maybe that's viewed from the inside of your house, or maybe that won't work. Maybe you want it to be near a spot where you can hear the pleasant sight and sound of it when you're sitting on your deck or your patio. It's pretty easy to move around a self-contained fountain, but once you dig and line a space, you want it to be perfect. Yeah. Water features of any size will require an electrical outlet and a source of water nearby, because filling will be required from time to time. And think hard about whether or not you want to create a mound for a natural-looking waterfall, or you really think a level pond is more your style. Provide part sun and shade, and think about potential debris from shrubs and trees nearby. If you can avoid it, it helps. Now, what's going to be best from you? Installing fountains and ponds can take many pathways. If you're a do-it-yourself kind of person, you can purchase a kit from a reputable supplier. It will contain a liner, a reservoir, pumps, and fittings. Most kits will not provide you with rocks or gravel that you may require to finish your project. Or you can calculate the size of your fountain or pond with or without a waterfall, and then purchase all the materials on your own, including the pump and other components needed to recirculate water. Now, there are many professionals who are happy to install a pond with a waterfall or a wildlife pond with a simple fountain, if that's the direction you want to proceed. Costs are going to run you between $900 for a fountain up to $6,000 and up, depending on the details of your water feature. You can hire a licensed professional to install whatever kind of water feature you have in mind. A tip is to call 3 different licensed professionals to determine the best match for you. They'll provide you with an estimate of cost, and that allows you to make an appropriate budget. So how about if you build your own pondless water fountain? Well, there are lots of videos and articles that describe the steps required for the installation of a pondless water fountain. Please be sure to check all of them fully before beginning such a project. Doing it yourself can be rewarding and fun, but you got to be fully informed before you begin. And actually, nothing's better than speaking to a real person who's had that experience. Find a local pond and fountain supply store and ask as many questions as needed. That will prevent you from making some beginner's errors. So you're going to need to select a site, determine a size and style of a fountain, purchase the materials, assemble your tools, including an adjustable wrench, a shovel, a level, a pipe cutter, a handsaw, and a wheelbarrow. Now, these are the general basic materials that may be required for a fountain project. Note, there's a basin reservoir in the top here. Now, these basins will vary in size depending on your fountain style. You could also opt, instead of a basin like this, you can dig out a space and use a vinyl liner. There are other options. That is another option for you. But this one is pretty simple to install. You will require barbed fittings, hose, a PVC fitting that has an adjustable, I can't think of the word I want, an adjustable dial so you can adjust the flow of the water through your water feature. You'll need the stone of any size or shape. They don't always have to be this shape. It could be very tall column. And then, of course, aggregate rock. Now, here are the steps you'll employ. You're going to place the basin on the ground and outline the shape with spray paint. Move it and then dig out the space, the depth of the basin, making sure not to dig too deeply. Don't overdig the hole. You will cause unwanted settling when that basin gets placed in there. Make sure the bottom of the hole you dug is level in both directions, so when you fill that basin to the top, there'll be no spillover. Now you have an option to purchase a rock, a stone, that's pre-drilled. But maybe you don't want to do that. If you want to drill your own stone, you will need a special rock drill with a long bit to make the hole that you desire. In either case, you'll need to place a properly barbed fitting into the hole using a hammer so that it has a snug fit. I encourage you to be very careful when you do that so you do not damage the barbed fitting when you place it in the hole. You can then fit the hose into that barbed fitting and manipulate the rock into place on your basin. Now, most basins are designed for rocks that weigh up to 500 pounds. Make sure you check that before your installation. Then you'll use another barbed fitting and place the hose. You will use another, using another barbed fitting, place the hose into the basin where you will attach that valve fitting that will control the water flow. And you will also need to attach it to the pump. I can't give you advice on that attachment because it will depend on the pump you select. Now you're ready to fill the basin with water. And then you will use the control valve to test the water flow over the rock to see if it's pleasing to you or not. Whatever you do, make sure you do not plug in or turn on that pump before the water basin is filled with water. You will be in danger of burning out your brand new pump. Doesn't it look great? It has a small trickle of water that makes a modest sound. Now, the picture on the left is one that I took when I was out and about and saw another pondless water feature. This one did not put any plants around. I like the plants that they selected to place around this one. This one opted for no plants around it, and it only has one drilled rock where water flows out into this space where it goes into a basin and the water is recirculated. This is a simple but effective design, and if you like a DIY project, maybe this one is just right for you. But maybe you're sort of disappointed that that doesn't make a bigger sound. If you want a larger sound impact from your pondless water feature, then you might consider an echo or resonating chamber. Now, it's pictured here on the left. This one happens to be plastic. They also come in metal. They're just a larger basin for water, which will provide a greater distance, falling distance and a larger sound of water splashing when it's returned to the basin. If you elect to do a metal container, please give it an extra coat of rust-resistant paint before installation, even if it does say it's galvanized. Once you've dug it out and placed it, you don't want to have to replace it because it got a hole in it. Now, this is going to cause you to dig more. More excavation is required, but these come in various sizes from 18 inches to deeper. It can be a really nice addition to drilled boulders. This is a seating area with 3 boulders, and water splashes out of these are pre-drilled. And there's lovely plants around here. And when you sit here, you don't really even notice these 3 boulders. Pretty nondescript, not attractive to attention, but when you're sitting there, you get the calming audio experience of splashing water. And it's lovely. Now let's talk a little bit about constructing a pond. Any pond, whether it has a waterfall or not, should fit in with the natural landscape of the land. It should have a curved, irregular shape. If you have a small yard, then a 3 by 5 foot pond is a good size for you. If you have a larger yard, you can consider a 5 by 8 or even larger pond, perhaps with the stream running to it, and a waterfall. Now, a carefully thought out location will bring rewards in the end. Now, I know you've already called 811 and you marked all the areas where utilities cross your property. I want you to think about the water levels in the areas where you would like to place your pond. It's important you should keep the water table, you should keep your pond above the water table to avoid damage to your pond liner. So it is best to test the water table in the winter when the soils are wet. To do this, you simply dig a hole the depth you plan for your pond. So if it's 24 inches, 36 inches, fill it with water, observe it for 24 hours. If that hole remains full of water on a dry day or drains very, very, very slowly, maybe only an inch down, then the soil in that area is insufficient to drain water away from your pond and might damage your pond liner. You have some choices here, some options. You can select another area in your landscape for the pond or berm for the pond, and you need to test it too. So if I decide I can't put it here, I'll put it there. I need to be sure and dig a hole and test that space also. Or you can berm up the soil so that your pond will be well above the water table. Also, you need to do some thinking about where your pond will drain if it should overflow from heavy rainstorms or when you need to drain your pond for cleaning. You have a couple choices here as well. It's important that you consider them, though, before you decide on a location for your pond. It may mean a little bit more excavation. You can channel water through a French drain or a dry well. French drains, put a picture here on the left. A French drain is simply a trench lined with rock and a perforated black pipe. This black pipe is often wrapped with landscape fabric to prevent it from getting silt inside. The trench will be slightly sloped out toward your storm drain, so water will drain away from your house and your property and your pond. And this is a dry well. Principle is the same. The water goes into the dry well and is slowly absorbed into the surrounding soil. But you can also make sure that at construction, you elevate your pond liner edge so that water that falls on your driveway or sidewalk, which is known as sheet flow, will not flow into your pond, which will also carry dirt and other debris into your pond. So if you elevate, that won't happen. Or you can simply keep your pond slightly below maximum capacity to allow for any rain volume that might cause an overflow. So you have some decisions to make there. This is a list of materials that you will need to complete your pond project using an excavated space with an underlayment and a pond liner. It will also include a pump, reservoir boxes, and piping. Now, the previous list assumes that you want to use a fabric underlayment and liner for your pond, but there is another choice. You can select, like I showed you earlier, a pre-formed structure molded of polyethylene or fiberglass. These often come as a kit from a reputable supplier with all the parts and materials you'll need to complete the project, except probably the rocks. And by the way, if you're thinking that a plastic pool for children or some plastic pool that you happen to have around is going to work, no, it is not suitable or strong enough or designed for such rigorous use. Be wise and select a high quality product. Underlayment. Well, underlayment is to protect your pond from roots, rocks, and burrowing animals that can damage your liner. It's suggested you lay it down before you place the liner to prevent any damage to that liner. It's a lot to remove a liner. Now, if you have opted to do a preformed or molded shape pond, you will not need underlayment. If you opt for underlayment, you will need enough to cover the pond area with a 12-inch overlap on all edges. The liner. Now, the pond liner is designed to contain and hold the water into your pond. Pond liners come in a variety of thicknesses and strengths. By the way, this is not an area to cut corners. Buy a liner that will last you many years. Suggestion is to use a black EPDM material 60 or 80 millimeters in thickness. You'll need to purchase enough liner to fill the pond space and overlap the edges by 1 foot. The overlap liner will be concealed with stones. The recommended material can be repaired and will last 100 years if properly installed. I encourage you do not even consider using black vinyl sheeting or clear visqueen. You will be horribly disappointed. Now you're going to need to compute the amount of liner and underlayment needed for your pond. I've included one formula here, but there are online sites from suppliers which provide you with a calculator for determining the amount of underlayment and liner you need. Remember, all computed sizes should include a 12-inch overhang on all edges for both the underlayment and the liner. Now, selecting a pump. There's an array of pumps out there, but basically they fall into 2 categories. Submersible pumps, which are inexpensive and quiet, and surface pumps, which are used primarily for really large pond installations and irrigation. You will probably opt for the submersible pump. The pump and filter you select depends on the volume of water in your pond. All specifications are written on the packaging of pumps, but I really recommend that you take pictures of your proposed pond and the computed volume of water to your local pond consultant. They can help you make an appropriate decision. You want to make sure your pump is sized adequately for the volume of water that you're pumping. These people can also advise you on whether or not a filter needed, especially if you plan on fish, or a skimmer are needed. Now, a skimmer can be an added expense, but it can help with maintenance of debris in your pond. I'll describe more about skimmers and filters in upcoming slides. A special note here is that a wildlife pond will not require a pump unless you have a waterfall or you've decided to move water in some way. To compute the water volume so you can size the appropriate pump, use the formula at the top of this slide. Now, unfortunately, I've just told you not to make your pond exactly a rectangle or a circle. It's going to be curved and natural looking. The above formula will give you a rough estimate for a volume of water in your pond for the pump. And if you enjoy technology, they have handheld GPS units that can help you compute the volume of water in your pond. I have included a link to a handout with a more detailed set of formulas if you want an exact volume of water in your pond. A skimmer. Now, a pond consultant can advise you on whether or not a skimmer would be wise in your case. A skimmer is a bit of an added expense, but can help control the debris in your pond. A special note, you won't need that for your wildlife pond. A skimmer, if you can see from this diagram, is basically a chamber that holds a basket for debris and the submersible pump. Water flows in here, debris is captured in the basket, clean water flows into the submersible pump, and then it's circulated back into the pond. If fish waste or debris sink to the bottom of the pond and create ammonia, that is bad for the pond ecosystem and fish that you have in place. So a skimmer will help you eliminate the amount of debris that might sink to the bottom of your pond. They usually encourage you to place the skimmer opposite the waterfall or any other water return source. You might also need a filter. Filters are used for water quality, since a filter moves water through a filter pad to remove particles of debris and plant matter. On the left is a mechanical filter. It moves water through a filter pad and simply recirculates it back into the pond. A biological filter has filter pads that are permeated with beneficial bacteria to convert toxic ammonia and nitrates into harmless nutrients. You'll probably choose the biological filter if you plan to have many fish in your pond. Using a string or spray paint or a garden hose, you can try out some locations for your pond. That makes it easy. You can change the location then if all the criteria aren't met. Your pond should get about 5 to 6 hours of sunlight if you plan to add plants. Partial shade will discourage excessive algae growth. Site your pond, of course, near a water source so you can fill it from time to time, and electricity for your pump. Before you start digging, it's time to order all your supplies, including your pump boxes and/or skimmer box if you desire one. That way, you can excavate out the spaces for the boxes because you will know their exact size and shape. If your pond is small, digging it out by hand makes good sense, and it allows for you to sculpt in shelves for stability and a place to put some plants. You'll also need to dig out an area for your submersible pump box and/or skimmer box. If it really feels like it's too much for you, then hire a professional. Be sure to call 3 and make sure you understand the costs involved. You should also plan for the excavated dirt. If you can't use that extra dirt for landscaping purposes or to make a waterfall mound to go into your pond and you have to remove it from the property, think about using a tarp. It will protect your grass and allow for the ease of removal. As I said before, avoid over digging the hole. The less you disrupt the area, the less settling will occur. And of course, in the bottom of your pond, you're going to remove any sharp rocks or debris that will be a problem for your underlayment and your liner. Now, if you do wish a waterfall, you can use some of that excavated water to build up a mound on which to put your waterfall box. And of course, you'll need to dig a trench for the return line up to your waterfall box. By the way, that return line doesn't need to be more than about 12 inches deep because water will be moving in the line and freezing will not occur. Many people opt to put stone blocks at the top on which to rest their waterfall box. You can do that, or you can just make sure you've very well compacted the space, the bottom space for your waterfall box. Settling will always happen, but not disturbing the soil below the depth of your waterfall box will help a lot. Before placing the liner or the underlayment, make sure your pond is level so that one side isn't lower than the other. That will cause an overflow problem in one area, and you don't want that. So take the time to make sure that you've made it level in both directions. Now, placing the underlayment. Now, this job is best done with 2 people. It's not that it's heavy, but it's really awkward. Open the underlayment, set it over the pond, let it drop into the hole, take off your shoes, and beginning at the center of the pond base, move it evenly to all the edges and the shelves. It should overhang 12 inches or about a foot, and when finished, should be the exact outline or shape of your pond. Now the liner. Now it helps if you can unfold the liner and set it out in the sun for about an hour to soften before you try to place it. Repeat the process you used with the underlayment. It's going to be heavier, so you probably want a couple people to help you. Again, open it up, center over the pond, and with no shoes on, work slowly moving it in all the spaces until the pond shape is covered. Make sure that that liner is in full contact with the excavated space. No liner will hold up if it spans a void that's underneath because the weight of water will really stress the liner. You may find a few wrinkles and folds. That's probably very, very natural, but you can try to lift and move if possible. And this liner should also have a 1 foot overhang. Now for the fun part. You've got these rocks. You've probably sorted them and rinsed them off. If you rinse them off, that'll be less debris when you try to fill it. You're going to place large rocks on the bottom row and work around the perimeter of your pond, dry stacking the rocks and making them sort of locked together as much as possible. Place rocks in the corners, add gravel as needed between the rocks to make a snug fit. Don't forget to save your best looking rocks for the top row because that's the one that'll be the most visible when the pond is full. You don't need to worry too much about tearing the liner, but avoid dragging the rocks across the liner surface. You don't want to cut your liner after you've just gotten it all placed in there. Now, the waterfall, if you've just elected to do one, will need some flat rocks to be used as a spillway, and then other large and small rocks can be placed around and under the shelves to create a natural waterfall look. This lovely product called rock foam can be useful in filling some spaces, but avoid using too much of it. And if you use it, always try to add rocks to it before it dries so it conceals the fact that you had to use a little rock foam to fill in some spaces. All pump and skimmer boxes should be placed before you fill the pond. They'll need to be level and all pipe fittings watertight. Spacing and fittings will depend upon your pump, your skimmer, and your waterfall choices, so I can't be too specific in recommendations there. And now's the time before you add water to put in submersible lighting if that's what your desire is. You can add and adjust the rocks to conceal the wiring and secure your light source. And now it's time to put some water into that pond. Now, many people opt to place 2 inches of washed small rocks on the bottom of the pond. And I do say washed because it will help with the turbidity when you fill the pond. If they're pre-washed, it's just going to minimize everything. Slowly fill your pond using a garden hose. It's going to take longer than you think. Now, putting 2 inches of small washed rocks on the bottom is optional. You might find that your pond design will be easier to clean out in the future without them present. It's an aesthetic choice. If you're planning to have fish and you're filling your pond with chlorinated water, then use a dechlorinator and let it sit 2 to 3 days before you even consider adding fish. Once your pond is full, allow it to rest for 24 hours so the turbidity has a chance to settle. In the meantime, you have an opportunity to secure the liner to your pump boxes. Now, it's important to make a watertight seal when securing the liner to the box. Now, the underlayment does not need to be secured to the waterfall box or the pump box. It can just be cut, trimmed around, and laid flat. But you do not want water to get between the liner and your pump box. That will not work. So you need to do a little bit of a dry run. There is a faceplate on your pump box that you can take off, unscrew it, take it off, lay your liner over it, mark the screw holes, and cut out any open spaces that need to be there for water flow. When you're sure of the fit, take it down, apply a thick layer of silicone sealant around the perimeter of the box, press the liner over the silicone, and attach the faceplate with screws into the screw holes that you marked with the awl. Then let it sit and dry. After the glue is completely dry, you can trim off any excess liner that's showing. Now it's time to install the pond pump. You will have to follow the instructions on the product you purchased. Instructions do vary from product to product. Just make sure all clamps and pipe connections are snug and that the pond box is someplace where you can access it because you will need to service it from time to time. This one on the right is placed perfectly for easy access. The lid comes off easily and you can reach the pump and any filters that might be in there. Use rocks and large stones to hide the liner and keep it in place and protect it from UV rays. If you vary the width and length of the rocks, it'll give it a more natural look. And sandstone, slate, and granite are excellent choices. Trim off any excess liner that's showing, and you have completed your pond project. Time to celebrate. Now, you might wonder, I did not address streams, or sometimes they're called rills, which is a type of a stream in a gully that flows into a ponded area. It's much the same process as described in pond construction. Ideally, if you have a sloping terrain, you can contour a stream to exit into a ponded or pondless area. This will depend on how much space you have to accommodate it. You can use spray paint or rope to mark out a pathway. You can dig and level and line the stream much the same as you did for your pond project. If you line it with rocks and gravel, then it can tumble down a couple of dropped areas to create small waterfalls as it exits into a pond or a pondless area. I love the one on the far left here. There's a seating area at the top. This stream runs past the stream and down to this pond. And they obviously used the soil that was excavated from this pond space to create this slope. Otherwise, this space is pretty flat. But they did a lovely job of sculpting a stream bed that looks ever so natural. And this water, I have to tell you, is always as clear as it can possibly be. The one in the middle is a much more mature stream that runs into a pondless area. It looks very natural. This could be a regular stream in the forest that you just happen to pass. So they've done a wonderful job of putting shade plants in here and make it look beautiful. And the one on the far right, this is a more of a municipal facility that has a little stream that runs into a pondless area that recirculates back to the top. Now, you're going to want your new pond or pond and waterfall to look natural. When we first dug out our water feature, I thought, oh, this looks so naked and out of place. Pond plants made all the difference. And they can provide cover, oxygen, and shade for any fish or other aquatic life you might want. There are 3 types of plants for ponds. Submerged plants, which grow completely underwater. Floating plants that will shade the water and decrease algal problems, and plants on the margin, which conceal the pond liner, soften the pond edge, and create a natural-looking barrier. A little rule of thumb: plants should not cover more than 70% of the pond's surface. That's the way to maintain balance of sunlight for shading the water and helping to reduce algal levels, but enough sunlight for submerged plants growing below the water. And by the way, native plants are more adapted to the environment. Here is a partial list of native pond plants. I've included a handout regarding types and care and maintenance of aquatic plants for your reference. Marginal plants have their roots, crowns, and often their lower foliage growing underwater, but they are not specifically aquatic plants, and many of these you can easily find at the nursery. Just make sure you always find plants that are well adapted to wet feet. Submerged plants are the oxygenators for the pond and get nutrients in the water through their leaves and stems. They also help keep the water clean of algae and offer a habitat for aquatic life. And finally, floating plants. They offer resting spaces for small pond life and shade the water when it's hot. Plants that you plan to place on the shelves of your pond can be planted in pots as long as you make sure you put some rock in the bottom of the pot to keep them upright, and that the soil you use is like a regular topsoil with sand, compost, or garden loam. But do not use a potting soil that has perlite or vermiculite because it will just float away. Many wise planters of pond plants put a little bit of pea gravel around the top to maintain the soil in the pot. Having them in pots makes it easy to maintain them if dead areas or thinning is needed. You need to thin plants or repot them in the fall if they become too large for the pot they're in. If you have decided that you want tropical varieties of water lilies floating in your pond, then you'll need to think about whether or not you need to protect them for winter. If you're like me and maybe don't want to move plants in and out of my water feature, explore the hardy water lily varieties that are native and they're hardy, and so they don't have to be moved inside. Their resources should help. There's also more pond information in the resource list at the end of this presentation. Aquatic life. Well, koi, shabunkin, which is a multicolored goldfish, or goldfish are the most common choices of fish for ponds in our area. They're hardy, well adapted to cold temperatures. They're colorful and easy to care for. And koi become quite friendly and will approach you. Goldfish tend to be a little bit more shy of humans. I do want to tell you that if you want koi in your pond, it's best if it's at least 2 to 3 feet deep, and 4 feet is even better. And a caution, whatever you do, please don't release non-native fish into our natural waterways, creeks, and streams. It just creates problems for our native fish species. Now, you've made this really wonderful natural area, and you've provided some food for predators if you've put fish in them. You should be prepared to deal with their arrival, particularly if you live anywhere in the Willamette Valley. Herons and raccoons may both be a problem depending on where you live. Now you can screen, I love this picture. I think somebody had this designed especially for their pond feature. This is a screen that's meant to prevent herons and other critters from digging around and fishing out their whole entire pond. It's very attractive, particularly the way they've got this grass shooting up out of the top. You can also use a heron statue that's of good size that might discourage their approach. They don't like to compete with one another. But I do know if I'd had fish in my pond, the heron would have fished it out and nothing flat. I do have some friends who use plastic netting. If you choose plastic netting for your pond to keep heron or raccoons out, opt for plastic netting that is very heavy. That lightweight plastic netting will trap birds because it's kind of invisible to them. Now, raccoons are a little bit harder because they dig and tear up the vegetation around your pond. You know, they're just part of our life. Now, you can explore and use sound, flashing lights, and noise or low voltage dog fences to protect your pond if you wish to. I would just say to this to you, if you have a low voltage electric fence around your little pond, make sure you have an off switch right there near where you can see it so that nobody is hurt. Oh, and mosquitoes. Whenever there's an attractive source of stagnant or still water, mosquitoes will appear. They lay their eggs in the water and larvae feed on the organic debris. It takes them as little as 7 to 10 days to become adults looking for a mate. The prevention steps include the following. A pond or water feature that is 24 inches or deeper won't appeal to them. They prefer shallow water. A fountain, waterfall, or other device that recirculates water will also help. If your water is chemical free, you will attract dragonflies and backswimmers. They eat the larva of the mosquito, as do fish. If you have goldfish and koi, they will eat the larva of the mosquitoes. If you have a problem and just don't know what to do, you may have a vector control nearby that can offer you some solutions. I put the management of mosquitoes in ponds and water gardens here for you also. Maintenance for ponds. Well, now you've got this beautiful addition to your home landscape, so you should make sure it looks its best all the time. Maintenance or caring for your pond should be done every other week. If you have a wildlife pond, maybe you don't need to do it quite so often if you don't have a pump, skimmer, or waterfall. You should remove the debris from the skimmer basket every other week and be sure to remove any debris you notice floating on the water. If you should happen to notice a reduction in water flow over the waterfall, it might be time for you to clean that filter on the pump. Monitor the water level of the pond and fill it when you need to during hot days when sunlight may be causing evaporation. But if you're filling your pond daily or more often than normal, you may have a liner leak caused by settling or by vegetation. Check the perimeter for wet spots. If water's leaking over the liner, it's simple to put a rock or a soil under the low spot, cover it up with plants, and go on your happy way. Sometimes leaf debris or growing vegetation will obstruct the flow, cause a little bit of a leak. That's easily fixed by trimming back vegetation or removing debris. Now, pondless water features are pretty easy to maintain. Just remove debris regularly to prevent a buildup of organic debris on the bottom. Check the water level and fill when you need to. And again, if you notice a slowdown in the waterfall flow, check the pump for any blockage. In the fall, you need to be very mindful because excessive leaves from trees and shrubs might blow into the space. You should annually clean out your pump vault and wash out the filter pads to remove any buildup of algal growth. Think about it. If you've got this algae growing in your pump vault on the filter pads, it's just recirculating into your system. Don't let that happen. Every year, rinse out your filter pads or replace them and avoid that. I put it on the calendar because I can never remember it. And also, pumps don't last forever, and they run 24/7. Make a note of the model number, size, and brand of the pump you have as a starting point when you have to search for a replacement. Now, early in this presentation, I discussed self-contained water features and container water gardens. These both require minimal care and upkeep, but a couple things. Both flowing water features and water gardens should be regularly checked for leaves and debris, especially if you've got a pump that can become clogged. Monitor for mosquito larvae. Take steps to prevent problems by replacing water if necessary. In late fall, early winter, either store your self-contained water feature indoors or drain it and remove the pump to avoid it from freezing and to really keep the integrity of the ceramic outsides of your water feature. Water gardens, if planted with hardy or native plants, should be fine. You just need to protect your pot from freezing temps so it doesn't start flaking off. If it's small enough, you can take it indoors. Or if not, you can wrap the sides with bubble wrap or a blanket during cold temperatures. If it's like last winter here, we won't have that problem. So whether large or small, there is a water feature that will work well in your garden. Think of the lovely splashing sound of water as you sit and enjoy your beautiful garden and water feature, a true oasis. I hope today I've shown you how it's possible to bring a new element into your garden landscape. I discussed how to select a water feature, the 4 basic types, how to select a site and install one yourself or hire a contractor. I gave you ideas for the addition of plants and aquatic life and how to maintain a new and beautiful feature in your garden. Thanks so much for joining me. These are some of the resources I used. Remember, you're going to get a copy of this as well as a list of all these resources. And now we have time for some questions if there are any.
Hi
Leah.
there. Thank you. That was so complete and informative that we didn't have a lot of questions. Um,
Great.
I'm going to give you two because we don't have a lot of time. So
Okay.
one of the question was, what if you've got a bird bath like 2 or 3 inches deep? Are there any plants that you could put in a bird bath?
Gosh, I don't know of any that. That is an excellent question. I may and maybe not appropriate. Um, you might be better in my mind. You might be better off at the base of that bird bath to put a little water garden. That's what I'd opt for. Then you can have at least 12 inches because for most plants that you would really find attractive and would bloom, you're going to need 12 inches
Yeah. I I think that's what I was envisioning was plants around the bird bath, but not necessarily in it.
in
And
the bird bath. Yeah.
yeah,
And those birds, they're messy. They're going to
yeah,
tear up
they'll
those
just throw
plants.
things everywhere.
They do.
We also had a couple of questions about the mosquitoes, and people were
Ah.
asking about BT and mosquito dunks. Do those things work as well, or what's your thought on those?
There are tablets you can put in ponds to discourage mosquitoes, but I would say this: try to be as natural as possible. Try not to. And by the way, those mosquito tablets are harmless. They are not dangerous to people. And most, like our vector control in Clackamas County, will provide you with those if you call and say you have a mosquito problem in an area of your yard. But they'll also give you tips on making sure the water's deep enough. As I said, if it's 24 inches deep, they're not going to be interested in laying their little eggs and larvae there. And if you introduce any motion at all, any moving water will not sustain mosquitoes. And if you have fish will eat the larva. And if you have it chemical free, then you will have back swimmers and other insect life that will eat that larva. So think about that.
I know one of the things that I was really concerned about when I installed we have a waterfall and pond feature, and I thought, oh, I've got to have fish to eat the mosquito larvae. And
Hmm.
then I basically kind of eased those out because I wanted to have tadpoles and frogs as well. Um, and so even though I've eased out the fish, the dragonflies and damselflies which are so fun to watch. I mean, that's
And
just
they
a
are
huge thing,
wonderful.
I
Mhm.
just love that all summer long. Um, I have never had a mosquito problem, right next to the pond in the 8 years I've had it.
Right.
So like I said, it was a big worry, but
You,
anyway,
you know, the ironic thing, the biggest problem with mosquitoes comes from old tires that happen to be in space. They get filled with water. That will generate mosquitoes. I mean, just shallow little things. You forgot you left that in the side yard. It's
yeah,
filled with rainwater, and now mosquitoes have inhabited it.
yeah.
So
So there's
a
lots of
managed
options,
pond.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And I think that was it. And I encourage everyone to go ahead and register for next week's webinar on how to basically go beyond sprays and maintaining your vegetable garden, because we're all thinking about vegetables right now, right?
We are.
We
We
are.
are. The sun's shining. The birds
I've
are
already
singing.
got my order in for the Spring Garden Fair, tomato grower that I love. I can place my order and it's just there when I pick it up. So this will be a really great webinar for this time of year. So thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Cheryl, for an incredible presentation.
Thank you, Leah.
And we'll see you all next week.
All right. Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.